Hello, mentors. Welcome to Roads to Wellness. So this is meeting 3, January 25. And we'll have two different parts, but they're closely related. Going to be kind of similar to the last meeting in which each part builds on the previous one. So the first one is called Happy Creatures. That's about 40 minutes. Let's please some creatures to the fullest by making the best choices. And then my happy plan, 35 minutes. Let's create, revise, and share different math plans to achieve and sustain wellness. So this is about happiness, but really it's about wellness and kind of the fact that happiness or wellness can be planned and we can use habits to really achieve happiness. So it's not as random as you think. And then math comes into play, as we will see. So let's read a little bit about the goals, general goals of the meeting. So we'll discuss well-being, which variables affect it, and what can we control to have a sustainable well-being. So it's all about this conversation from the point of view of you mentors, but also students. And especially in part 2, they'll bring all their experiences and likes, to create models for happiness. Of course, very simplified, but it's okay. It's part of the conversation. So yeah, Happy Creatures will be practicing for the framework, working in balance with co-mentors. So we'll do a lot of coaching on Monday on that, and also reflect on how co-mentoring is improving. Now this is the 3rd meeting, but we'll also pay attention, of course, to last week's Make It Come Alive. Of course, in the first couple meetings, you may use to more traditional style of math. So I think this 2.1, we can still improve or grow a lot. We were discussing with our leadership teams. We saw a lot of, good improvements in that part, of good examples, but also some missed opportunities. So we can keep growing in that regard. So let's not forget about this. Time management, to quick things. So in part 1, you may skip some of the creatures. There's 4 creatures, or maybe go a little faster in some of them. So we included a lot of creatures, but it's not necessary to conquer them all. It will greatly depend on your table, your kids, the motivation, the level, many different things. So don't worry about covering the 4. I think even 2 is fine, or 3, something like that. Now, if you cover all 4, you could even create a new one, of course, if you have very interested students that are, working so fast and getting all the concepts. And then in part 2, you may help students in some modeling parts that are kind of time consuming. So, just reach out and you work as a team in the same level. So you're more like a mentor and a guide, not a traditional teacher. Let's look at the goals from the math. So we have these 4 goals mainly from the math. It's all about functions of several variables and extreme variables. Having said that, this is not a calculus lesson or derivatives, things like that. It's more informal, and it's all about the representations and then how to find the maximum or extreme values without using derivatives or any, very complicated techniques. So the goals are representing functions of 2 or more variables using tables, heat maps, equations, graphs, diagrams, and manipulatives, and also relate these representations. So don't do it like, isolated way, but more integrate 2 or 3. Maybe different students may have different representations, but then you can press them into thinking integrated about how to connect these representations. Makes sense how these would translate to that, for example, a table and a graph, or the equation, etc. Second goal, explain visually and in words what is the maximum value of a function, how it looks like. Then give a function, use trial and error and number sense, mainly, to find extreme values and explain these findings. So no use of derivatives. And finally, important goal, model real-life situations using functions with several variables and use them to solve problems. So what students will get from this meeting mathematically, it's modeling with functions of more than 1 variable, how to represent them, and then how to go about finding extreme values, making sense of them. So pretty, pretty ambitious goals, but We have a plan for that. And the goals are more in an intuitive level. So again, no formalization, no derivatives. Keep it at a basic level, informal level, because it's probably the first time that students will get familiar with these concepts. Enrichment, we have 4 goals. Growing our perspective about how happiness is something that we can invest. Care for other people's ideas about happiness, and listen with our undivided attention. So let's make a big effort on listening and caring about what others said. Imagine a life full of happiness and design the steps to get us there. And here's a big interaction with math, how math can provide a structure to that when you're building an agenda or habits or a schedule, distribution of variables, etc., doing computations. And finally, resist and explore. So this is the deeper goal for this enrichment. Resist ideas about how money, material things, or following others like trends, etc., blindly can make us happy, and instead explore how activities with friends or by ourselves cause happiness in the long term. So this is a really deep goal on where do we get happiness? Do we get it from other people just following them, or material things, or rather from activities that we can plan? That's kind of the main big, trend of the meeting or idea, the big takeaway, that you can plan happiness with activities that somehow that you decide whether to be happy or not. But of course, this decision comes with a plan, and it's long term. You don't get happiness for a day. You get some ecstasies, but it's not just long-term sustainable happiness. So all these discussions are going to be interesting. Let's go into the student workbook. And when you're preparing this meeting, it's important that you look at the workbook maybe even first, and you just maybe predict what's going to happen, just from the point of view of a student. So we will start with a discussion in part 1 of this type of questions. What's the happiest day of your life? Or what's the effect of being surrounded by positive thinking people? Here we have some word map. So this is happening in part 1 of the meeting, which is happy creatures. We start with this introduction, those questions that are asked. And then we go to happy games, which is about 20 minutes, in which there's a game to be played about these creatures, where students are trying to maximize the happiness, and they can kind of, compete with each other. It's not like a fully fleshed game, but more like an activity or simulation in which they're kind of learning the math with lots of examples. So we're not defining a function like very literally, or the maximum. We're not defining it mathematically formally as you would do in Stewart or other textbooks, but we go more friendly, and we just start with this big theme or big context of these creatures. So this turtle likes to pet me or sing to me. This puppy likes shake me or take me a picture. Iggy, make me laugh or write me. So that's where he gets happiness. And these are the formulas to get happiness. So for example, here, laugh plus write. These are the 2 variables, but then you multiply the first one by itself and then time it by the second variable. And this will be explained in other videos that you can, browse in the resource material, or even here in the teaching manual. The last one is pretty fun. Ella, drop me or forget me in your friend's house, and you'll have a discussion. Of course, Ella, this umbrella, maybe she doesn't like to be dropped. So you can see how this math plays into that part. There's an element of luck, random, rolling dice. Mainly this goal is this technique is kind of to keep it fresh and to also add some more complexity and variety to the activity. Then there's some analysis about the math, and that's part 1. So part 1, let's go again and take a quick look. You started with this introduction about happiness, just to set the stage, and don't just do dry math, but actually have a story and have some social perspective about happiness from the point of view of mentors and also students. Then you go into happy games. And finally, you now reflect and discuss at a more general level or a little more formal level. You start abstracting some principles, so concluding how to actually maximize happiness. So here you can start talking about a little more formal terms, maybe about functions or about happiness, because you already did a lot of concrete things in part 2. And so that's about 40 minutes. You use dice and some stackable cubes for some representations of multiplications, mainly. Here it's an example. The representations are all over the place, and it's very rich in this sense. You can use these state diagrams for distributions. Then you can use tables, in which the happiness is the third column for pet and things. But going beyond that, you can use these 2D tables in which the value of happiness is just written here. And then you can analyze a lot of patterns in rows and columns. For instance, here you can see that it's growing by 2, right? When you keep the petting fixed and the singing, it's increasing. You can also analyze the diagonals, etc. Of course, you can use graphs in a coordinate plane where you would, you have this restriction that the sum of the variables is 10. So that allows you to only use one variable because the other is automatically chosen. So you're only deciding one because the other is going to be 10 minus that one. And then you can plot the happiness and see how it happens. So it's a very rich. Second part now, let's move after the break. My happy plan. So now students apply the math and they actually build a function. So it has 2 parts, the creation, and hopefully students don't work alone, but at least in pairs or groups of 3. That's key part, collaborating in learning, just to see how the others are thinking and negotiate, etc. So we're promoting a lot of these skills of collaborating in Mathseo. And finally, share the creations, compare them, have a little discussion there. Let's quickly illustrate from the point of view of the student workbook how this would be done. And mentors can, of course, and should do this again also. You'll probably do it in coaching, but also during the meeting. The first is naming 3 activities that really make you happy, but that you don't do every day. So you have these first ABC. Then you'll allocate some time during the week, and you'll say A plus B plus C is going to be equal to that number of hours. So let's work with hours here. For example, you could have 15 or 20 or even, maybe 25, etc. And that's going to be your restriction. So the sum of ABC must be that number that you set for your investment of happiness. Then you'll get really creative here and create a formula for happiness. Of course, this may change week by week or even month by month, right? Because we're humans, we're not robots, we just change our feelings. But just for simplicity, let's just have some formula. Of course, students may need some help here, but part 1 hopefully gave some inspiration on linear combinations, 3 times the variable plus 2 plus the other variable, or products, along with some parentheses here, etc. So a lot of expressions, right? There's a lot of expression building and evaluating in this meeting. And finally, you will exchange with a friend or with a couple. You can do it depending on how you're working, and then you'll help that partner maximize their happiness, trying different values of A, B, and C to see how high you can make the happiness. And of course, here it could get messy depending on the formula. So you could maybe help mentors not create such monster formulas. And there's also a quick video that has some particular model that our TA Anna did. So this is the meeting, Roads to Wellness. And any questions, mathematics or about how to teach this new principle 2.1 or commenting, just reach us in Slack to me, Andres, or to our commenters, and we'll be very happy to help you. So have a lot of fun and have a very happy weekend.